Hello, everyone. Good evening. Let me know if you hear me well. I'm using the internal microphone. See if you let me know if you hear me clearly. Beautiful day in Vermont. I see there's a lot of you already, 63 here. Yeah, let me know if you can hear me clearly. I'm not using my usual microphone. Victor Claudio. So yeah, uh, sound good? Yeah, great. So the title of the live stream is sounds a little bit counterintuitive, that the madness of central bankers is a blessing in disguise. I know they're going to destroy our currencies, but I think the acceleration of this situation now, with all the creation, inflation of their balance sheets, pumping the stock market, pumping the debt. It's going to lead to a total collapse of their game. So in a way, it accelerates things, and I think that's a good thing. Hopefully, we'll come out on the other side with a better system. It won't be any worse. Of course, there's a lot of pitfalls that could result from it. So let's see. We've got Olivier from Paris. Hi, Olivier. Victor Claudio, he's from Brazil, I think. Water Shambles, sounds good. Uh, who else? We got 192. Pablo Pina. Yeah, Billy's here. He was in the living room. I had to go call him. He was with my wife, and I said, "Come on, Billy, you need to work." Beautiful day in New Jersey. It was a beautiful day here in the UK as well, in England. It was sunny, and it was fairly mild temperatures. I think in the high 60s or about 20 degrees Celsius. Padenda's here. Cow beer, bubble popped, or pullback. Yeah, that's a big. I've listened to quite a few people this weekend. I've taken some notes. I listened to a guy that is really interesting. You might know him. He's called the Northman Trader, and he was talking about the fact that Apple took 35 years to get a $1 trillion market cap last year in 2019, and since then the market cap went up as high as 2.34 trillion. So it took them 35 years to reach a trillion, and then in less than a year it went up another 1.34 trillion. So yeah, Apple dropped 20% last week. So did Tesla, drop 26. And the technical picture doesn't look great. As many of you know, I look at technicals a lot. And what you had in the NASDAQ, especially, was what's called an outside week. So you had a higher high last week than the previous week, but you closed below the low from last week, and you made a new low. So it's like if you look at the bar chart, it's bigger than the previous week, and it closed lower. Usually that's a sign of a top, but we'll have to wait and see. There's a question here about the Chancellor, I think, in the UK. Marin Katusa considering signing up for his resource opportunities. I have followed Marin Katusa before. Yeah, you know, you could. You'll be paying for that. I think, you know, with the precious metals, with the mining stocks, they're all going to do really well. So you have to weigh up how much he charges. I would just go and look at the prospectus of the big funds and see what they hold and try to go like that. But you know, you never know. That's what I would say. But he's a good analyst, I think. Will gold gap up after the upcoming Fed meeting? Pat asks. Fed meeting is what, 15th and 16th? I don't know. I mean, usually gold doesn't do very well going into a Fed meeting. We'll have to see. I can't really say whether it will or not. Tricky Dicky, thank you for the super chat. Your surname is not Nixon, is it? uh, Mario, what caused gold to start rising prior to the '08 crisis from 2000? They hadn't started printing, or is it because they had started to lower interest rates? That's an interesting question because I was actually thinking about that the other day. I think the big signal was the fact that they came out with the major central banks. They came out with this the major European banks, their selling program that they were going to renew every 5 years to control the sales of gold. That helped put a bottom into gold. I think the other thing as well was after the dot-com bubble burst, you had Greenspan cutting rates aggressively. And then you had the speech by Bernanke, who was at the time, he was a member of the board, but he wasn't the chairman. His helicopter speech was in 2002. And I think that was a big signal. That was one of the reasons. And I think also the Chinese as well. I think they joined the WTO in the late 90s, and the Russians as well. Putin came to power in, I think, New Year's Day in 2000. And I think those countries wanted to strengthen the position of their, not the government, but the countries themselves, and they started buying gold as well. So I think it's a combination of a few things. I think it was the bursting of the dot-com bubble. I think gold had been at $250. It had been languishing for a long time as well, since 1980. Aaron Levy, how long until hyperinflation? Well, the thing about hyperinflation, it can happen very quickly. I don't know. It's difficult to say how long it will be, but you've probably seen some videos I made about the Dow chart going back to 1920, long-term chart, and there's like a trend line on the logarithmic chart, and we're bumping right against that line. It's around 29, 30,000. And I think if we go through that line in the Dow, we could be in a hyperinflationary environment, or it could turn around and we could see a collapse. Would that be bad for gold? I don't think so, because usually when there isn't a big debt bubble, right, in the markets, like up until 1999, 2000, I think the conditions were quite stable. The debt growth wasn't that big. You'd have higher interest rates, lower interest rates. Everything was steady. But now they've grown such a big bubble that when it bursts, there's going to be a lot of bankruptcies. So I think gold will do well no matter what. Pace Arrow, thank you for the super chat. TRX is down 30 plus. I think I might cut my losses and buy more silver. Yeah, that's Tanzanian gold, right? I got in around 65 on that. I got out actually a few weeks ago around 92, 93. I wasn't happy with the price action. It kind of went up before all the other mining stocks went up. So yeah, I got out and I got into some other mining stocks, more well-known stocks. But I think long term it's got a good future. But if you want something more, yeah, I wouldn't blame you for getting out of it. Hi Ben Gray, nice to see you. 307 of you. That's quite a few of you. Let's see if I see any more questions. What caused gold to start? I've seen that one. Tricky Dicky, Mary, do you think that the chancellor will extend the furlough scheme, even though they said they wouldn't? Yeah, they're playing a lot of games. I noticed last week they started talking about the fact that the people at the Treasury wanted to raise a lot of taxes, and they said, "Oh, it's not the chancellor; it's just the bureaucrats at the Treasury that want to do it." Yeah, they're testing the waters. Yeah, there's a lot of people saying that they should extend the furlough. They might. I saw that they're talking about already 3,000 new cases of this thing that I'm not going to name. You all know already. Apparently, there's 3,000 new cases yesterday, but that's 0.0045% of the population, and with a 99.6% survival rate. So that's nothing really. But I think they're going to use that maybe for another lockdown, and that would be another excuse for another furlough scheme. A furlough scheme ends at the end of September. Peter Richard, thank you for your super chat. If a digital dollar is introduced, how will it affect paper dollar assets? It's not going to be any different. It's going to be is out of thin air. It will probably be. It's more debt. It's just going to be digital instead of being able to use coins or Federal Reserve notes. They're not going to, unless they back it by something, of course, like gold, which they should, of course. But that's the interesting thing about Judy Shelton, who is still due to be confirmed by the Senate. I've seen a couple of days ago, there's a lot of criticism against her, but she has a really good background, I think. She knows her stuff about the monetary system, about international finance, and she understands how you can't have a fair international monetary or trade system with currencies that float against each other, that don't hold their value. It's like she's given an example for that. It's like going to the Olympics, right? And you're a long jumper and you jump, 9 meters. And then they say, oh, you didn't win because 9 meters now is only 1 meter, right? And for you, it's only 1 meter. But the guy from Russia, he jumped 8 meters, but his 8 meters is the old 8 meters, So that's how our system is. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's a digital fiat dollar or a paper dollar. They're not really worth anything. They're not a good store of value. How will the crisis affect the price of real estate? Well, I guess it depends what country you're in. I think in the UK here, I've been reading that some house prices have made record highs again, but they're mostly like houses less than 500,000, and they're not in a particular area. It's really difficult right now because people are moving to different areas because of the crisis, but only because there's been an incentive by the government until March. But if there is a currency collapse, you see, the real estate market could be frozen for months or years. What does that mean? Well, it will be really hard to buy or sell anything. So yeah, the house could be worth $1 million, but you can't sell it. So I think that's what it will be. But if you don't have much debt, if you don't have a big mortgage, a house is always a good asset to have, I think. Tricky Dicky, I find it disturbing that the government will use its overdraft to borrow undisclosed amounts that just allows them to literally print money, right? Yeah, Tricky, they reopened this account, is the Ways and Means account with the Bank of England a few months ago, which basically means the Bank of, it's a secret account, and the Bank of England can give them billions out of thin air. That means the government doesn't have to go into the gilt market to borrow the money. So I agree with you. It's you need to have get out of if you have savings in national currencies wherever you are in the world. I think it's a risk. Where I think you should have it, right? Where I have it, it's up to people to decide. Are you worried about pre-COVID era of cashless society? Ben asks. Yeah, I am actually, because a digital world means, like Robert Kennedy Jr. actually, he said that in Berlin in a speech. Cashless society means that the banks can turn off your account whenever they want, or the government if you because they work together. If you don't do what they want you to do, they all it also means every time you use your card, the bank will get seigniorage, which is like a cut of every transaction. Yeah, it's a really bad thing. We should resist cashless society as much as possible. Even though I do use my card, I use mine today, but I do use cash as well. GeoFit bought land, gold, and silver to escape the Lebanese currency collapse. Yeah, I guess you're in Lebanon, GeoFit. Can you have too much gold? No, Chris, I don't think so. I think it's the only commodity where the laws of diminishing returns do not apply. And that's probably why it's money. Gold. Yeah, you can never have enough. I'm not saying I'm greedy or anything, but yeah, you wouldn't refuse if someone came by your house and said, "Here's a ton of gold." And you wouldn't say, "No, no, don't give me a ton, just give me an ounce." You take the ton. Ghazi Gorbel, just take a look at his channel and judge. That's big picture understanding. I don't know who you're talking about there. Sorry. UK's housing market started crashing in late 2005, borrowing early 2012 versus real money. Can you talk about Swiss franc, how good it is, OVOV? I actually don't rate the Swiss franc. I think the Swiss franc is actually one of the worst currencies out there, fiat currencies. And why is that? Well, because the Swiss National Bank, their balance sheet is the biggest in terms of GDP in the world, and they own a lot of the FANG stocks, all these stocks that have gone up massively in the last 6 months. And no, I wouldn't own the Swiss franc. I wouldn't mind owning property in Switzerland, of course, but not the currency itself. DMC asking about the vaccine. I don't think it is the equivalent of the guillotine because it's not something they're just going to give to the aristocrats and the king of France, right? Uh, no, but I guess I don't know. It's a way to. It's not going to cure you, right? Because there's no cure for the flu or the cold, and you know, but I'm not going to be taking it. I'm sure they're not going to make it mandatory, but they're going to make your life hard if you don't take it. But hopefully, they won't succeed. Helton and Nestle say Fed prints money. Steve Van Meter says the Fed cannot create inflation and cannot print money. He's bullish on US dollar. Can you comment? Well, technically, what they create is reserves, right? Because they create reserves. With these reserves, out of thin air, they will go to the banking system. They will buy assets from the banks. They'll buy US treasuries that banks own, and they will credit the banks with reserves. And then the banks will take those reserves and lend it out. And when they lend it out to you or anyone else, it's called money, right? So the more assets the Fed buys, the more the banks can lend. So indirectly, they are printing money by creating reserves, and you can see that seeping through into the M1 and M2 money supply in the US and in the UK and in the EU. Yeah, that is inflation, you see. The creation of money and credit that the Fed is encouraging with zero rates and the creation of reserves out in there is inflation. Rising prices that we see in the stock market, in housing, in commodities, in the cost of living, tuition, that's a consequence of inflation. That's too much money and credit chasing too few goods. So the CPI is not inflation. CPI is a measure of prices. So I don't know who this guy is, this Van Meter, but whoever he is, I don't know. This is the way I see it. I hope that helps. Yeah, the it's Labor Day tomorrow in the US, isn't it? The markets are closed. They'll be open here in the UK and in Europe, so the gold market will be open, probably not as busy. Um, just a little thing about Labor Day in the futures market, um, and the market that I worked quite a bit on, the government bond market. Usually, you have the March futures, you've got June futures, and September future. So the day for the name, when you call the broker and say, "Where's Labor Day?" They'll know that you want to know the September future. That's how we used to do it. Uh, just a little thing from the markets. How much money is enough? Well, GeoFit, I think the most important thing is your not just money, it's also your health and how well you are with it, mentally, and also if you have, some kind of value to add to society, so you can earn an income. So, yeah, I think nowadays too many people are worried about winning the lottery, or betting and winning big, or speculating in the stock market, or even in mining stocks and making a killing and stop working. uh, I think, yeah, it's nice, all those things. I wouldn't mind winning the lottery, but I think the most important thing is to have a source of income, and to be self-sufficient, to have little debt, and maybe then you can start trying to save and accumulate a little bit of extra wealth. So I'm not like I don't have the answer if you want to become rich or anything like that, but I think it takes hard work, discipline, and of course sometimes you need to be lucky and be in the right place at the right time. That as well. Advice for a young small cap day trader. Uh, uh, well, the advice is that you need to have a lot of discipline. You need to not listen to anyone else and just do your thing. But it's hard day trading. Maybe keep a core position of where you think the market is going. For example, if you're bearish, keep a short position through options or whatever, and then trade around that position, so to speak, and watch the tape, watch the prices, because a lot of times you will see things happening that you will know if you watch the tape almost 24/7. If you see a move that's unusual, let's say the market dumps, then you can go in and buy, and even if it bounces just a little bit, you get out. Those kind of things. You gotta like do it as a business and be uh, obsessed about it, I would say, and into it, and yeah, and don't ask other people their opinions. Just do what you think is the best thing to do. Christopher Conover, thank you for your super chat. Always enjoyed the show. Why is the Fed beholden to the US stock market? Why are they always inclined to bail it out? Yeah, that's interesting question, because I was listening to this guy today he has a podcast, Northman Trader, and he was talking about that. And apparently Ben Bernanke wrote a speech in 2000, or gave a speech in 2003. Wasn't the helicopter speech, was another one. And he said that keeping the stock market elevated, pumping money into the stock market gives people confidence. It makes them like spend more. Even people who don't have stocks, right? But they see in the news Dow at all-time highs. People think the economy is doing well, so they will buy more things. So he was noting that, like last March or February, March, when the stock market crashed, retail sales dumped. But recently, retail sales have gone up because the stock market is at all-time highs. We get people tweeting, right? The stock market is doing great, economy is doing great. So that's why I think the Fed wants to do. They think it creates a wealth effect, and it does to some extent. And that's why they keep trying to pump the stock market, even though Bernanke is in denial, saying that they didn't really create, that it's not a bubble, right? Hope that answers your question. How is gold a good alternative to the pound? Well, because gold is money, and the pound is a worthless piece of paper. Well, not worthless completely, but is losing value, every decade versus real things. Gold has been money for thousands of years. The pound used to be a currency that was convertible at a fixed rate to gold, but ever since the UK went off the gold standard in 1931, we've had inflation. And why is that? Well, because the bankers can create credit out of thin air. There's no discipline. That's why it's an alternative. I mean, I think 1 ounce of gold was 17 pounds in 1968, and now we're almost 1,500. So, and yeah, that's why. Joker Alpha, have you heard that the COMEX has open silver contracts till December? What does it mean when silver with these open contracts? I think I know who you're talking about. I think this guy gave an interview to, is it Palisade Radio or something? I'm so, the guy, I think his name was Dezo Games or something. And he had some interesting points he made about the trading in silver, all the deliveries. But what he doesn't understand is that, and I traded futures for years as a broker. So the August gold is, after August gold goes off the board, December becomes the front month. And the same thing for silver. December now is the front month for silver. So that's why all the open interest is in December. There's nothing special about that. It's just the front months that they're mostly traded. There are other months as well, like September, October, and November, but they're not traded regularly. They're not the most liquid months. So that's why it's jumped to December. I think that guy said it's got something to do with the elections, but it happens every year. You go from August gold and August silver, and then December becomes the front month. So there's nothing really special about it, I would say. But doesn't mean to say that I think the COMEX should be called the CRIMEX, right? Anyway, I hope that helped. What's the margin for the banks on the COMEX? Emery Mako. Well, the COMEX has a margin, same margin for everyone, but it depends. If you open an account and you're a small investor with a broker, they will charge you more margin as well than they would charge a big bank that has a futures account. So it depends. The COMEX publishes all the margins. Initial margin, there's initial margin for each contract. That's the margin you pay when you open your position. And then there's the variation margin. That's the margin they charge you depending on how the price moves every day. But the smaller account you have, the more margin you will pay. The Ken says he started buying gold when it was 348. Yeah, I think the first time I bought it, it was at 321. Yeah, I wish I'd bought more. But that's the thing, though. Unless you're mega wealthy, sometimes you can't buy as much as you want. GeoFit says, Mario, tu es le meilleur. That means, Mario, you're the best in French. Thank you. You said that, not me. How horrible is the economy in the UK? 40% of German companies are broke without government relief. Um, I don't think it's much better here either. And I think, yeah, I've thought about that. It's really hard to know exactly what's going on because we haven't seen something like 2020 ever before. I don't think ever in world history, but I have a feeling that 2021 will be like the hangover because a lot of people are still living normally because they've been given subsidies by the government. But I saw a video yesterday on YouTube of in Houston, Texas, people being evicted from their homes, and apparently 200 a day in this county in Houston, and usually I think it's 200 a month or something, a lot less. So there are a lot of people suffering out there, but they're mostly the people at the bottom 50%, I would say. They call it the K recovery, K shape. So the top are doing well and the bottom are doing badly. The K shaped recovery. Yeah, 2021 will be really bad. I think that's when people are going to feel it really badly. I think. Um, and the other thing that they've done with this crisis is that even if they were to come out right now and say that everything's fine, the virus has gone away, we can go back to normal, a lot of people will still be very skeptical. A lot of unions, especially in the UK, they will refuse. So they've created a problem themselves, the politicians. Much, I think part of it is on purpose, but maybe not. Who knows? Gur good advice from Gur. If you find peace in yourself, you are the richest man on this realm. I agree with you. There used to be a guy called Richard Russo. I think he died a few years ago. He wrote the Dow Theory market letter, a newsletter, and yeah, he was involved in trying to make money and help people make money, but he said the rarest commodity is peace of mind. So I agree with you that that's the other thing as well. Uh, Doug says he's holding his gold bars for my grandkids, or coins as well are good. They're easier to hide, but yeah, that's the idea. Trying to help your family. A good place to buy gold and silver at a car boot sale. Just buy a set of scales. You might find, jewelry sometimes at a boot sale. You need to make sure you check the hallmark. If it doesn't have a hallmark, I wouldn't buy it. But yeah, you might be able to find some stuff. Yeah, U.S. election is going to be interesting. I think I've heard people saying that neither candidate is going to accept defeat. That could be a problem. Uh, Rusco, do interest rates rise? Yeah, if interest rates, let's say the central banks are keeping the short-term rates, they're trying to keep them, well, they're keeping them low, near zero, but you could have the longer-term rates or yields spike higher, go higher, and they will create a lot of bankruptcies, but they will also make things more expensive. It's a nightmare, really. But yeah, they would rise in a hyperinflation or a deflationary collapse as well. We saw in 2011, 2012, with the European sovereign debt crisis, we saw interest rates in Italy, Spain, Greece, Portugal, and Ireland, especially Greece, go to double digits. while the ECB rate was like near zero. So yeah, it's not good. Jill Fit, yeah, I live in London. That's right. I do listen to Gerald Celente. I haven't don't listen to him that much, but my wife listens to him quite a bit these days. But yeah, I've known and listened to him for many years. Gerald Celente, he's good. He does get a little bit wound up, doesn't he? He's funny. Jeff says he's heard from a good source that property keys are being handed back to a bank in Portsmouth. So yeah, it's happening here in the UK as well. Yan Map, bull market in gold. Well, I think the bull market really started in 2000, 2001. We had the first leg to 2011, and then we had a long correction from 2011 to 2015, end of 2015, and then it bottomed, and it's been rising. It's like the third phase now. And yeah, we've broken through the high of 2011, so I think we are on to the third leg. Yes, we did come back down from above 2000. We went to 1860, but I think it's just normal for markets to do that. And the only way I can see gold and silver stopping is if the central banks start raising rates, if they start selling all their assets, if governments stop borrowing money, start paying off debt, then gold and silver would come down. But ask yourself, do you see that happening? I don't think there's a chance of that happening, really. Chris R, how long can the Fed control the long end of the curve? Yeah, interesting question there. Uh, I think they can keep controlling it for a while longer, but if we see commodities start rising like they are, eventually investors are gonna like not want the longer term yields because they're gonna price in more inflation. And we saw as well that the Chinese, there's an article, I think last week, someone from a university in Beijing saying that China could get rid of 200 billion of treasuries. That could affect yields as well, even though the Fed could buy that in one day, couldn't they? But if they did that, the Chinese and the Fed had to step in. That doesn't help confidence in the dollar either. Uh, Brain Trip, which long living goods you can recommend in case of gold, silver, diamonds confiscation? Yeah, Swiss watches are always good. They always hold their value, the good ones. Rolex, Patek Philippe, they do the gold watches as well. But what you have to realize, though, in the depression, for example, yeah, it will be probably harder to sell your watch. But when things pick up again, then you'll be able to sell it. But they always hold their value. I guess antiques, but you need to know about those things. Classic cars. Um, I like watches personally, so I think watches are good. Uh, some people look into fine wines or even whiskey. So there you go. Do you think we may go back to a gold standard, Rama Bangad? I think it's possible, actually. There was an article, I think, last week from, I think it's Voima Gold. I saw in Zero Hedge. And they interviewed a guy who used to work for the Finnish central bank. And he said that gold could be an important part of the monetary system going forward because this current system is broken, really. So, no, there's a good chance, in my opinion, that we could. But more importantly than a gold standard, though, is having fixed exchange rates. People think that's crazy, but up until 1973, We never had floating exchange rates. And that's what creates loads of problems with international trade. We need to have a monetary system around the world where the money is a fixed unit of value, i.e. gold, and then you can have your national currencies, but they have to be fixed at a fixed rate versus gold, and that will encourage honest dealings amongst countries, in my opinion. It's the only way to solve it. So I do hope we go back to a gold standard. Mr. Guppy, why didn't you mention in the video you sold some of your gold stocks? Why did you keep it secret? Well, I don't keep. I just told you. I mean, I don't I don't make my videos to tell people what I buy or sell. Sometimes if people ask me, I tell them what I've done. You know, that's not the purpose of my channel. I always say that people need to do their own homework. Right now, I do have mining stocks right now. I actually bought some on last week, even though they were down. I bought some, and at one point they were down quite a bit, but they actually closed really well towards the end of the week. But I'm not here to tell people when to buy or sell. So if you want that, you should go to a service where people charge you and they give you, you know, recommendations to buy and sell. I don't do that, Mr. Guppy. Lily Robin will have companies hitting their all-time high stock prices the same day they go out of business. Yeah, wasn't that happening with Hertz earlier this year? I think it was crazy. Yeah. I was listening to Northman Trader. He was talking about, I think it was a Bank of America study, and he was saying that since March, all the central banks, they've been buying 1.4 billion of financial assets every hour. That's how crazy things are. I thought that was an interesting, observation. New York City is a ghost town. San Francisco is a ghost town. Yeah, I don't think people realize how serious that is. Because they're big metropolitan areas. They like New York, for example, is like a gateway to the US. A lot of tourists, they come to the US, they visit New York first, maybe, and they go elsewhere. Yeah, it's a big, I think it's going to hurt. I think tourism is about 10 to 15% of the economy around the world. I looked at that earlier this year when this virus started. In Europe, it's even more important, tourism. Kinesis, no, I haven't looked at that. I'm not really interested in Kinesis. I haven't really looked at it. I just like buying normal gold. I've seen that they pay interest, so that put me off because that means they're lending the gold, or I don't know how they pay interest, but I haven't looked at Kinesis. Miles, question: how does the average gold holder see a value increase from a gold standard return? Well, I look at a gold standard more as a philosophical and something more for the world in general, for for the system. I don't look at it because I want to make profit or anything. I think it would just be better for the whole world in general to be under a sound money system, because the current system we have is immoral, really, because a few people can create money out of thin air while everyone else has to do something that is worthwhile and put effort into earning their money. So that's why. But I think if you're holding gold and we go back to a gold standard, you'll probably benefit from that because it will be more valuable probably against other assets. The Real Scott, thank you for your super chat. How will ICE 9 start and what are the signs? Well, I guess ICE 9, I spoke with Jim Rickards actually. It was back in March, I think, just when things were kicking off. And we were thinking that we could have a nice 9, but they just kept things going. The central banks had to throw everything at it. Uh, I don't know how it will start. I thought it was starting back in March, but it will be something that will affect things, uh, and it will stop. It will stop. It will drain the liquidity from the markets, and there will be no money. So they'll have to shut the system. But I don't know what it will be. It could be the stock market going down again, or it could be something else. It could be like some electromagnetic event that shuts down the electricity and the internet. Who knows? Or it could be the derivatives market blowing up. Derivatives are still their notional amounts it's almost like 1,000 trillion. So you get a lot of volatility in the markets, and derivatives are very leveraged. And all the big banks have a lot of derivatives. All the hedge funds have derivatives, and even the mutual funds, the less risky funds, have a lot of derivatives. So it could be in the derivatives market. LFC, Liverpool Kinesis pays its bonus from the transfer costs. Andrew Maguire is no fool. Do your research and you'll find the sums are legitimate. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not legitimate, and I've listened to Andrew Maguire, but I'm just not interested in Kinesis. So, I prefer buying coins. I prefer a Glint because I know it's just gold. I just like plain vanilla products. So I'm not poo-pooing it or anything, but it's not something I'm interested in. So there you go. Yeah, the derivatives market is an existential credit threat, and I think they should abolish them. Even Jim Rickards has said that. Of course, there are some derivatives markets that are real, for good purposes, like agricultural goods for farmers, so they can protect their crops, the value of their crops. But the financial derivatives, it's just a casino, really. George Assad saw a nice fourth floor condo overlooking ocean in northern Sicily for $145,000. Yeah, I mean, before the lockdown and this crisis, I was looking at places in Europe because I think Italy is a really nice place. And even in Sicily, I have a friend here in the UK. He's Italian, British Italian, and his family's from Sicily. And yeah, that's very interesting. The only problem right now, I want to wait and see if I can travel freely eventually, because what's the point of having a place somewhere else around the world, and if you go there and then you get stuck there, or when you come back, they put all these limitations on what you can do. So I want to like let the dust settle a little bit, but that could be something interesting. Ben from Melbourne. Hi, Ben. Nice to see you here. I see things are getting a little bit weird in Melbourne, unfortunately, in terms of the what's going on there. Bellin GP. Hey, Bellin GP. What are your thoughts on Buffett buying stake in Barrick? Well, yeah, I made a video about that just the day after it was announced, and I think it's quite positive for gold. It shows that Warren Buffett, and the fact that he got out of a lot of his bank positions. It's a big signal, I think, and it's going to make other fund managers follow him. I saw last week Ohio police and fire pension, 16 billion pension. They're going to commit 5% to gold investments. So yeah, I think it's significant. Also because he's never really been too much of a gold bug like his father was, Howard Buffett. So the fact that he's getting into gold is interesting, and that was in the second quarter. We'll have to wait and see when they come out with the data for the third quarter. I think he'll probably have increased his gold positions, not just from Barrick, but maybe other companies, maybe even GLD. Who knows? Well, Elbow Sanchez, he didn't buy it himself. It was for the company Berkshire Hathaway. Uh, Warren Buffett himself, the man, he probably does have gold coins. He probably tells people not to, that he doesn't like it. But I wouldn't be surprised if he had a lot of gold himself. Why not wait for a collapse in apartment prices before you buy in Italy? Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think Italian property is still really expensive, especially if you look at places like, you know, the Liguria near Genoa, and also, yeah, Tuscany. They're still really high. Um, and as I said, right now I don't think is a good time because you don't really know where you going to be in terms of traveling. Uh, Bur- Buffett's Berkshire dumped more shares of Wells Fargo. It was disclosed on Friday. Yeah, not surprised. The thing about the banks, though, because I did an interview and I had recommended it was a couple of days ago. If you go on my channel with Michael Oliver, it's a really good interview. I think Michael Oliver has been in the markets for since 1975, and he was talking about the KBW index, which is the major banks in the U.S. And that index is actually been it's nowhere near its highs from 2018, and actually on Friday it actually went up when the stock market went down. But yeah, and he doesn't think the banks are going to crash much further. But yeah, I mean, Warren Buffett getting out of the banking stocks and going into gold is a sign that he's concerned about the financial system and the banks. Thank you, Mr. Guppy, for the heads up. Only 5%. Lord Humongous Wells Fargo is a stagecoach on fire without silver and a horse. Lol. Liverpool Film Club, the creation of, I think it's the creation of currency, really, counterfeit currency out of thin air. I think that's wrong and morally wrong. It's theft, But if you go to if you go mining and you find gold and you do all the hard work and bring that out of the ground, and you smelt it and turn it into a bar, and people will exchange that for some, they'll give you something for that. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, what's wrong is that's right, LFC. Oh, so he owned over 5% of Wells Fargo. I see. What if only some small banks survive? That would be funny. Yeah, I mean, in the UK, there's not too many small banks left. There's a lot of, like in Germany, for example, a lot of people think, Deutsche Bank, yeah, it's been like a zombie bank for a long time. But I think Deutsche Bank and Commerzbank, they only make up about 12% of German deposits. In Germany, there's loads of smaller banks, lender banks, savings banks. So, but in the UK, the system is very centralized. I think in the US is not as centralized either as here. Full of hope. Oh yeah, I think yeah, have a look. I think I haven't gotten the books yet. Well, talking about banks, did you know that during the European sovereign debt crisis, all the Irish banks went bust? And I think at one point, Paddy Power, which is a betting company, they had they had more money than all the banks combined in Ireland. So you could end that was an interesting thing that happened there in Ireland. Hi, Lord Humongous. How are you? What's up? I keep seeing the question: inflation or deflation? Isn't it inflation if you hold flat? Well, inflation is in the more monetary sense, is the increase in the supply of money. It's like the excessive creation of money and credit in a fiat currency system. That's inflation. We've been having that since the 70s with periods of, contraction. And deflation is when the overall amount of money and credit starts going down. But I recommend you look at M1, M2, M3, not on a percentage terms, but on a real basis. That chart is going like that. We've got inflation. We don't have deflation. And deflation of the supply of money and credit leads to lower prices. So, and inflation leads generally to higher prices. I think that's the problem nowadays. Very few people know the real definition of inflation or deflation. All right, I'll take a couple more questions and then we'll call it a day. Uh, Lord Humongous, we would love to have you on mic in the night in the near future. Would you like to come on? I sent you some Skype messages. Do you get them? Uh, I'll have to look because I don't really I'll have to open my Skype. I'll have a look at that. I usually don't open up my Skype Messenger. I'll have a look. Are we heading towards Soviet-style communism, or will they maintain some semblance of the market? Well, I think they're trying very hard to take us down that route. Hopefully, that won't happen. What happened to Bitcoin this week? I saw that it went down a bit. I don't know. I'm not really following that too much at the moment. Richard Duncan, what do you think about his belief that central banks can print perpetuity? Yeah, they can keep printing, but the problem is how much worth will their currency have? But no, I think central banking is is the 10th. It's one of the planks of the Communist Manifesto. Central banks are an abomination, in my opinion. They're not really necessary. It's a monopoly. I think the free market is where it should be. The free market respects private property. So yeah, I don't. I think we should get rid of central banks. I think I have listened to that guy in the past years ago, but not recently. But anyway, thank you, everyone. I wish you all a great rest of the weekend, or if you're in Australia or anywhere else over there, near there, a great start of the week. Take care. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll talk to you later. Well, tomorrow.